Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, January 30th. It is a little after 10 a.m. Forgive the delay with the start here, but the Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Ryan.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderman Browning. Chair Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. We have 3 present. We have quorum.
Thank you, Madam
President
Clerk.
Green is here as well.
President Green.
Present.
We have 4 present. We have quorum.
Okay. With that, we have a number of items on the agenda for today. In deference to my colleague from the 14th Ward, since his will probably go pretty quickly, we'll go ahead and take up his 2 board bill. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. We need approval of the meeting minutes. We have 2 minutes that we need to approve, one from January 9th and one from January 28th, this Tuesday. It appears as though we have both of them before us. They both seem to be in order at this point, and I will entertain a motion on the approval of meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of Thursday, January 9th, 2025, and Tuesday, January 2025.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st Ward, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th Ward, that we approve our meeting minutes from January 9th and January 28th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Ryan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderman Browning. Chair Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Browning. We have 4. President Green.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
4.
5.
Take care of it.
Did Alderwoman Spencer vote, Madam Clerk?
Sorry, we have 4 aye votes.
Okay, I thought I was counting that correctly. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go ahead and move to items for business this morning, board bills for review. Alderman from the 14th, you have board bill number 145 and 146.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Today, I would like to present Board Bill 146. Madam Clerk, could you just read the summary for Board Bill 145?
Board Bill number 145, introduced by Alderman Rasheen Aldridge. This board bill authorizes the execution of a lease agreement between the City of St. Louis, Missouri and SCF Fleeting, L.L.C. for the approximately 1,600 linear feet of mooring along the Mississippi River and the Near North Riverfront under certain terms and conditions for a period of 10 years at a rate of $125,000 for the first year and increasing by 3% each year thereafter, with 3 mutual options to extend for 5 additional years.
All right. Before I begin, is Mr. Ray in the room from the Port Authority? Okay.
Mr. Thomas Ray, are you in the room?
Usually it's easier to spot him out, but I can speak on him. If committee members have more in-depth questions. So Board Bill 145, I guess what I really enjoy about having the 14th Ward is I got part of the riverfront, and I have a lot of different leases and agreements from the Port Authority that comes through the board. And I'm really excited about Board Bill 145. This will be a new lease agreement. It's been an existing company, but it will be a new agreement where
I'm sorry, Alderman Aldridge, Mr. Ray is online.
Okay, I'll toss it over to him in a second. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. SCF Fleeting will now be leasing the area on the riverfront where Melanthie is to kind of be a place where barges and the fleets can be able to transfer. So a new lease agreement, which is super exciting for the Port Authority. And Mr. Ray, if I missed anything, please jump in and take it over.
Mr. Ray, we need you to turn on your video and your microphone.
I'm sorry. How's that?
Good morning, Mr. Ray.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Ray. I'm an attorney and I represent the Port Authority. Well, only thing I would add, Alderman, is that this mooring was attempted to be leased about 15 years ago, and the river did not really accommodate it. Over a period of time, SCF became interested in it, and the river became accommodating also. So we put it out for bid, and they bid. They were the only bidder, and that's why we're entering into it $125,000, which is far in excess of the normal rate. So it's just a normal lease with the regular mooring provisions with two. I'm sorry, what it's 110 and 3/5 options after that. We only lease the mooring because the Ashley Energy is working on the steam loop, which is adjacent to it on the property. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Alderman, do you have anything further, or are you open for questions?
Open for questions, Mr.
Great.
Chairman.
I sure we'll have some rigorous debate over this particular board bill. Questions from the committee. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Ray being here and giving us some more background on the project. I believe I heard you say that this is the normal charge. That's a yearly charge for this sort of mooring lease. That this is the standard, that $125,000 would be. That was my question.
It's in excess of the standard.
Thank you. I appreciate you all negotiating a good deal for the city. That's it.
Alderman, actually, Madam Clerk, and we'll get to this. Alderman Browning asked to be Mr. Ray, I just want to, commend you and, Director Taylor on your efforts with negotiations of these leases. For those of you that might not recall or might not have been around at the time when I first got down here, many of our leases were actually under market. And so we, at my insistence, and I believe Alderwoman Davis, asked the Port Authority to undertake a study to determine what we should be charging for these leases, and Director Taylor did a very diligent job in that, and happy that we're now getting the value out of these leases that we should be. And so thank you, Mr. Ray and Director Taylor, if she's on the line, for your continued efforts in making sure that the city realizes its full potential with these lease agreements. And if there's no further questions, I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 145.
I move to pass Board Bill 145 with the due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman first, seconded by the Alderman from the fourth, that we pass Board Bill 145 out with the due pass recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Chair Cone.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer. We have 4 aye votes.
Okay, with that, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the first to do pass Board Bill 145 with a due pass recommendation. Alderman, you're recognized on Board Bill 146.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board Bill 146 is an extension of a Continental Cement Company, L.L.C. It is another fleet that's on the riverfront that transport concrete over the flood wall, that does work here in St. Louis and also on the other side of the river. I was going to have the clerk read the summary, but it's in the bill. Again, this is just an extension of their lease that they already have. Mr. Ray, am I missing anything?
I would add is Continental Cement has been, I was assigned as a city councilor to the Port Authority in the 80s, and Continental Cement was there before me. So this is not an extension of the lease, because under their charter, you can only have a 25-year lease maximum. So it is a new lease with Continental Cement that was negotiated once you have a lease and you're not in default, you get to negotiate with the Port Authority. If you reach a successful conclusion and it's presented to the board and passed, you don't have to put it out for bid. So like I say, Continental Cement's been there forever. They own some land adjacent to this, and it's not only a lease for land, but also for mooring.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
Vice Chair Spencer. Alderman Narayan.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. This lease is for a good deal less than the previous lease that we said was just above standard, but this is about $100,000 less than the previous lease for mooring. So I'm wondering why the discrepancy. And I'm looking at you in the screen. That's why I'm sorry, everybody. But I'm wondering about the discrepancy there. And if it's a new lease, I don't understand why it wouldn't have to go back out to bid if there isn't a continuation of leases after 25 years.
Well, that's a long story, but the short one is that if you have a lease and you are not in default under the current ordinance, the Port Authority has to begin negotiations 6 months prior to the expiration of the lease. And if you are successful with the previous lessee, then they get a new lease. This is, there have been several leases, there have been several ordinances over a period of time since I was there back in the 80s, where originally you had to just renew, as you say, although it was a new lease. Then you had to put it out for bid. And then during the Slay administration, it came back to the ordinance that modified that and called for this negotiation period. And if it was successful, then you didn't put it out for bid. That's how we got to where we are today, Alderwoman.
And the difference between the last bill being $100,000 more for the lease of mooring rights, just confused about the discrepancy.
My understanding is that Continental Cement owns certain property up near, adjacent to this site. We had to move them in their lease agreement, and it was lessened due to the Musial Bridge. So that's how we got to the number.
Okay, we have a lot to get through today, so I won't belabor the point, but before the final vote on this, I would be interested in learning more about that, so I'll reach out to you, Mr. Ray. Thank you for your time. That's all my questions.
Wonderful. Madam President, do you have any questions on this?
No questions, thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up for public comment on Board Bill 146?
First, we have Mr. Malcolm Thompson.
Got public comment.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 145 or 146, am I correct? We're taking both?
Correct.
Okay.
We're on 146. Board Bill 155 is Alderman Narayan's bill. Madam Clerk, are there others signed up for 146?
146?
No.
145? We're on 145 and 146 right now. We're not on 155 yet, but you can sign up for one of those right now. So 145 and 146. Right now, we have for 145, Mr., I'm not sure, Combs, Taylor, or Dalen.
I'm not swearing folks in. You can go ahead and proceed with your comment and testimony. Thank you.
Awesome. In regards to the 1,600 linear feet of the Mississippi River, I have recently been on the riverboat cruise and there are regulations for boats going up and down our rivers. So with the lease agreement that therein apparently is 10 years past due, we are requesting either Coast Guard come to the riverfront and do security, or we actually pay the security that is supposed to be monitoring boats going up and down the Mississippi River to a specific point where St. Louis is there and in charge of ensuring that boats coming up to our cargo yard through our port authority come in on the southern end and the northern end. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this board bill, Madam Clerk?
Not on 145, but we do have two on Board Bill 146.
Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Malcolm Thompson,
He's signed up for 155.
Eddie Hansen, or Eddie Hassan,
155.
155 as well, Madam Clerk. Please note.
okay.
If there's no further comment or any further questions from the committee, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 146.
I move that we approve Board Bill 146 with the due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman
Roll.
from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we pass Board Bill 146 out of committee with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, Board Bill 146 passes out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderman from the 14th, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Board Bill 155, which brings all of these wonderful folks down to City Hall, to the People's House. So Alderman Ryan from the 4th Ward, if you would, take the podium. The dais is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Cohn, members of the board. Is Casey Milberg here?
Ms. Milberg?
Because she has the presentation.
Sean, could you check for Ms. Milberg in the rotunda? Thank you. I believe she's on her way in.
Perfect. All right. With that, I can start by, first off, there is a committee substitute to 155 that has been in the drive and was sent to the members almost a week ago now. So I'd like to just make sure that we have that properly in front of us so that we're discussing the committee substitute rather than the bill, as there are very substantive differences between the two.
I'll entertain a motion. The committee substitute for Board Bill 155 before the committee.
To adopt it.
Oh, put it before the committee.
I move to put committee substitute Board Bill 155 in front of the committee.
I'll second that.
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from, I sense a pattern this morning. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th. There's been a request for previous roll that we put the committee substitute for Board Bill 155 before the committee. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, please proceed, Alderman.
All right, thank you. Now that we have Board Bill 155 committee sub in front of us, I want to just go on a broad overview on what this bill does and what it doesn't do. The purpose of this bill is to strengthen and clarify prevailing wage and workforce utilization compliance provisions. This bill does not modify the city's WMBE ordinance requirements. It does set up clearly specific expectations, processes, and roles for administration of the provisions. The prevailing wage and workforce utilization goals were last updated back in 2020, but since then there's been a need for consistent processes, more clear processes, and we need better standards. This would allow for separate conversations on how to preserve the city's MWBE process in light of rapidly changing landscape at the federal and state level that we need to be aware of while we are still working to clarify the prevailing wage and workforce utilization. And with that, I'll hand it over to Casey to get into the nuts and bolts.
All right. And then for the clerk's office, could we move forward 1, 2, 3 slides to the one that says bill summary and whereas clauses? 3 slides, yeah. One more. Thank you. Okay. The nitpicking of the bill summary has been updated to reflect the new approach proposed in this legislation, with the sections of ordinances being amended, being included, and the narrow purpose to a focus of just on prevailing wage and workforce utilization goals and compliance and administration of those. The whereas clauses are largely the same as they were in the originally filed bill, but have been updated to reflect some additional comments about the importance of upholding, supporting, and enforcing clear and consistent standards. Next slide.
Right.
Section 1 of the bill is the definition section. It's very similar to Board Bill 155 as filed, but with the addition of a few provisions, pertinent among those being commercially useful function. That's defined as a contract fulfilled by a bidder responsible for the materials, supplies, and services used in the performance of the contract on a public project, very broadly. Contractor is a catch-all term used to designate a project manager, prime contractor, general contractor, or subcontractor. Directly engaged in construction and/or maintenance is all fixed works construction performed, very, very broadly. It's a very long definition, so I won't read all of it. And then public project is a term that captures what we have referred to over the past several years as a public works contract, city-funded project, city-bonded project, tax increment finance project, and or abated project with an estimated base value of $75,000 or more. Section 2, next slide. Thank you. As the bill sponsor mentioned, participation goals were last updated in 2020 to reflect where they are today. The committee substitute retains the as-filed language currently proposed, updating the apprenticeship goal to a minimum of 15% of labor hours from 20%, and the original language within 155 of the approach specifying that existing goals apply to public projects with an estimated base value of $75,000 or the threshold for participation. I know the bill sponsor will address this after towards the end of the presentation, but there, of course, has been some conversation about that base value amount, whether or not that is something that all folks are in agreement on. So I will let him speak at the end of this presentation about his contemplated approach towards that topic. Next slide. Section 3 talks about, this is new language added into 155 that talks about and makes clear the compliance tracking, monitoring, and reporting provisions that are to be expected of the city and its relevant entities for how to administer and enforce these provisions. Contained within those is the guidance that SLDC will manage and monitor compliance. They serve as point, but they also have the ability to contract out to assist with the duties of this ordinance as may be needed. In addition, there is language added in saying that permits for public projects must issue with a signed statement from the prime contractor agreeing that they and their subcontractors will abide by the provisions of the ordinance, that contractors and subcontractors will use SLDC software systems as they currently do for payroll compliance and monitoring, prompt payment of 30 days required for prime contractors to subcontractors, and retaining the existing ability within city code to assess a monitoring and compliance fee to support all these efforts, with the addition of any amounts collected above and beyond may also go to support workforce development initiatives. Next slide, please. In addition, new language in Section 3 is added to clarify that these provisions apply to all public projects for which a RFP, request for proposal, is issued, a public works contract is executed, a redevelopment plan is approved, or a tax incentive like an abatement, tax increment financing, or a bond is approved, extended, modified, or amended. So the intent there being to try to capture the full universe of public projects and related financing and awards. In addition, there's language specifying and requiring that all public project contracts will detail all the non-compliance provisions, goals, and other requirements specified under this ordinance. In addition, there's language stating that SLDC is able to develop and adopt rules to administer and implement the provisions of this ordinance. One issue that folks wanted clarified was ensuring that SLDC can be present at pre-award conferences held by BPS. That language has also been added in. And then SLDC wanted language in allowing it to be clear that they are able to assist with resolving questions, compliance matters, requests for assistance, complaints, violations, educating various parties about the requirements to try to enable better compliance, ensuring compliance, and verifying information. Next slide, please. New language was added in language was retained from Board Bill 155 as filed pertain to its certifications for contractors that will be contractors will be asked to provide for receiving an award for a public project. These include certifying that they have not been barred on bidding from projects in the past year, that they will serve a commercially useful function on the project, that they have had no license suspensions, revocations within the past year, clarifying that if they have a drug testing policy for on-site employees, to share what that is, make sure it's publicly available, that they will perform construction for the contract with on-site employees, that the required licensing for the project and individuals on it will remain with the appropriate authority. Next slide, please. In addition, that they will identify the required licenses for on-site employees who are directly engaged in construction or maintenance on the project, that prevailing wages will be paid to all on-site employees directly engaged in construction or maintenance on the project, that they will comply with OSHA certifications for on-site employees and on-site employee supervisors, that they will provide health care meeting the minimum value standard in the ACA to the on-site employees and their families with the prime contractor or its subcontractors, paying 100% of the premium for coverages, that they will comply with all applicable state and local laws, ordinances, rules, and regulations governing the conduct of business, and share whether they maintain or participate in an apprenticeship program that teaches and trains on the scope of work for which on-site employees will perform, and if so, provide information about that program and the participation in it. Next slide, please. Board Bill 155, as filed, contained certain provisions for noncompliance, and these have been both retained and built out with a little bit more specificity within the committee substitute. These include that SLDC has different triggers for investigations, and these are based upon the financial thresholds of the different public project awards. For those $75,000 and up, SLDC will initiate if a report of a potential noncompliance with prevailing wage or participation goals is made to SLDC. For the bigger projects, about $500,000 and up, SLDC will actively monitor those for compliance. When there is an allegation of noncompliance that's made to SLDC, SLDC will review all evidence submitted and otherwise available to it as part of that investigation. And then based upon the totality of the circumstances, they'll review and assess whether good faith efforts appear to have been made to comply both with prevailing wage as well as with participation goals. If they do determine that a violation is likely to have occurred, what they will do is calculate the amounts believed to be due, issue notices to contractors and subcontractors of the alleged violations, and work to notify affected employees. As part of that, they'll provide 20 days to cure, and if cured, the matter is considered resolved by SLDC. If not, they are able to exercise certain remedies that we'll talk about later for breach, as well as institute in partnership with the city, particular city councilor's office, and any other city entities that have remedies available at law to implement those too. The contractor and subcontractor are able to raise reasonable doubts about the calculations or findings to SLDC, which allows SLDC to withdraw notice, reassess, and if they determine that they still believe that there is an alleged violation, to issue one new notice of adverse determination with another 20-day cure period. Next slide, please. In addition, SLDC will notify departments of any determinations of non-compliant parties and recommend remedies. The remedies currently provided for in the bill include debarment for a period of a year or more from public works contracts, TIF projects, abated projects, and bonded projects. State law does allow for appeals in its administrative law code, so that of course complies, and there's specific reference to that as well. In addition, another potential penalty for noncompliance that could be leveraged is cessation of payments, incentives, and permits. In addition, liquidated damages are also a potential penalty for noncompliance. They may be assessed against the developer, general contractor, subcontractor, or all as the circumstances dictate. These can include $500 per day per impacted worker and the wage restitution amount of damages, the monetary amount of the difference between the participation goals and the amount actually paid under those goals. Any wage restitution received will be held in an escrow account for affected workers by the city, and damages received in excess of those wage restitution amounts will be used for enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance, as well as anything above and beyond that to support workforce efforts. SLDC is able to withhold 10% of payments incentives awarded that can be released after project closeout. And the individuals reporting potential noncompliance are able to remain informed of the status of the investigation. Next slide, please. Additional language has been added about prevailing wage, specifying that there are certain expectations for public projects. The expectations will be paid as described and required under state law. The rate used is the rate determined in the annual wage order at the time of each relevant construction phase beginning. Each contractor ultimately is held responsible for subcontractors' compliance. Registered apprenticeships may be paid less than a journey person rate specified in the applicable wage, as specified in the applicable wage order. And entry-level workers must be registered apprentices. Next slide. In addition, the apprenticeship to journey person ratio is no greater than 1-to-1 unless Missouri prevailing wage law is amended to a different ratio. So again, a nod to our state law parameters there. Any worker on a project not registered as an apprentice or who is out of ratio is paid as a journey person. In regards to the prevailing wage reports that are being submitted, a bit of clarifying language that these are submitted to SLDC monthly. They include the weekly certified payroll report form with the worker's name, address, their social security number, occupational title, hours worked, and wages paid. And that is accompanied by signed certification of accuracy that complies with all federal Department of Labor requirements. In addition, because these would be public record under 610, explicitly providing that social security numbers and any other information required to be redacted under 610 would be redacted. Next slide. There's an expectation that contractors will post in a prominent and easily accessible place a statement of all hourly wage rates paid to workers and how to report the alleged violations. There's an affidavit of compliance with these provisions that will be required in order for the city to make final payment or continue to authorize tax incentives or abatements or allow other incentives associated with that public project. There is an exception, the language saying except as otherwise required under federal law. So again, that's our nod to our federal legal landscape. And there's an anti-retaliation provision built in against current and former employees who have reported alleged violations, filed a complaint, or assisted with an investigation of alleged violation under this ordinance, and that would be a $500 penalty per employee or former employee who is alleged to have been retaliated against. The non-discrimination policy language from Board Bill 155 has been retained. It applies to developers, contractors, subcontractors on public projects of $75,000.
You're fine.
Oh, okay. Of 75.
Me to read this because rightfully so, we're very full. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to follow along, Casey.
I just
Sure.
sent it over.
Do you want the physical copy?
It's okay. We'll go ahead and go through it. And it sounds like I've got it coming.
Got it. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks for that. That's important. And if folks are not, if they do not have a non-discrimination policy, then the workers' labor hours do not count towards utilization goals. Next slide. We have our standard severability clause that we throw into most every board bill. Next slide. And then the effective date still remains 30 days after this is signed into law. All right. And then do you want to talk a little bit about contemplated?
Sure. And just so folks are aware, there is an ongoing conversation even as we speak about a threshold. I think that all parties are close, and I'd like to get through public comment and then see if we have an agreement or if we're at an intractable place and need to hold a vote, or if there's still room to continue working together. But I imagine that we have robust public comment here today that will continue to give the parties some time, even as we continue in our deliberations.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm just going to ask members of the committee if they have any questions real quick before we do get into the public comment. Questions from the committee. Questions from the...
You can use mine.
Questions from the committee related to Board Bill 155 committee substitute. Vice Chair Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to go through the presentation. I realize the room is very full, and it's just hard to read from the perspective of having a lot of people standing in front of it. And I appreciate you being here today. I would like to hear from the public before asking questions, but I do appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have at the moment.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. I agree with Alderman Spencer and look forward to questions after public comment.
Wonderful. Then we'll proceed with the public comment. If you have not already and you're here to testify either in opposition or in favor of Board Bill 155 committee substitute, please make sure that you're registered to do so with the clerk. There are sheets out there that you can sign up. Typically, we allow for up to 3 minutes for folks to share their perspective. I would like for you to just acknowledge that if someone has already said something similar to what you are planning to say, you're more than welcome to get up and introduce yourself, say what organization you're with, and simply whether or not you support or oppose the bill. We don't need to hear the same thing over and over and over from different people. I think we can get a pretty clear consensus on what's going on. Based off of what folks are saying. Now, if you have obviously something else that you want to add to the conversation, please feel free to do so. We love that, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time that's here in the chamber showing up, and don't want to necessarily have a 3.5 hour long meeting with folks saying the same thing. So please, by all means, register, sign up. But if someone has already said something to the extent that you are going to share, feel free to just introduce yourself. Let us know what organization you're with, your affiliation, and whether or not you support or oppose the bill. And with that, I'm not seeing anyone else rushing to sign up here, so it looks like everyone's already signed up to speak in favor or opposition. And we'll go ahead, Madam Clerk, we'll call names kind of from both sides, alternating between those who are here to support and those that are here to oppose the bill.
First, we have in support, Sylvester Taylor.
Wow. First up, who knew? My name is Sylvester Taylor. I've been a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers for 35 years. I just spent the last 4 years under the Biden administration being an apprenticeship ambassador, and that is to help women and people of color find their way into a registered apprenticeship program. I absolutely love this bill. I love the teeth in it. I love what I think it'll do for our community. I mean, who in this room doesn't want to pay prevailing wage, to have health insurance, to have a vacation, to have a pension plan? I think this shores up everything for us, and it prohibits people from coming into our region and paying plumbers $12 an hour to do something they should be doing for $30 an hour. And for me personally, the opposition of this bill, my friends, some are my friends, and they just awarded me an award for helping women and people of color find their way into apprenticeship programs. That's the best important part for me. Please don't get it wrong. Our organized labor unions got a long way to go, but we don't look nothing like we used to. We have worked hard over the last probably 20 years to strengthen our community so our workforce looks like the community that we're working in. We still have work to do. We still have work to do as far as women having lactating rooms. We still have work to do as far as women having personal bathrooms. We got a long way to go, but we don't look nothing like we used to. And this bill helps us get there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Next, we have in opposition, David
you cut
Jackson.
out. David Jackson.
He may be in the hallway. There's a.
Next, we have Jeff White in opposition.
What makes me in opposition to this bill, my name is Jeff White. I'm an APCA member and a board member. I'm also affiliated with MOCAN. I'm not against the union. And what the young man or the man just said, he don't look young. but
Please make sure that you're
I'm
talking
sorry, he
into
don't
the
look young
microphone.
anymore. But what we want to make sure that when you write this bill, you make it fair for everyone. That's all we're asking you to do. You know what I mean? When Martin Luther King died, he fought for jobs. That's where he died, in Memphis, fighting for jobs. And he asked the question to all of America, a rising tide raises all boats. Now, you got to ask yourself, is this raising all boats? And it's not. The way it's written, it's not. All we're asking is to give room for those that grow up on Hebert, St. Louis Avenue, Lillian, in the Baden area. If they, I'm a union bricklayer. If you come in the union, you got to get a job to get to the union. Some unions will hire you and then put you out on a job site. Some unions, like the bricklayers, you got to get a job. Okay? What happens if a kid grows up in his neighborhood and he wants to get a job and he can't, but he figures out a way to learn how to lay bricks at Tuck Point? And he makes his way to the point where he can get out there and get a job. And you put it at such a low rate. And I'm not against prevailing wage or the rate that we pay. I'm just against the $75,000. That's just not fair. You made it one way. Make it two ways. You got to ask yourself, you're aldermen for all of St. Louis, not just one entity. All right?
Thank you, Mr. White. Next, we have Mr. John Hendrick in support.
And just a matter, make sure that when you're introducing yourself, you say your name, the organization you're with, and speak into the microphone so that the folks at home can also hear. If you're not speaking into the microphone, it is very difficult for the folks that are watching SLTV or online to hear. Much appreciated. Thank you. Please proceed.
Yes. John Hendricks, IBW Local 1. Great. My name is John Hendricks. I'm with the International Brotherhood of Local 1, IBW St. Louis, EWMC Greater St. Louis Chapter Vice President, fifth year Inside Wireman Apprentice. I'm an apprentice. Card number 7730485. I want to start just by saying in Job 36 NIV, but if they do not listen, they will perish by the sword and die without knowledge. In short, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And I say that to say, this has nothing to do with unions, other than that what unions contract for sets a standard that anyone that comes into that negotiation can't undermine. So someone like myself, who's with unions, who just got into the union 5 years ago, my predecessor, Sylvester Taylor, said, we don't look anything like we used to. For anybody in our community who's looking to come into the union, or if they stay non-union, our solidarity, our collective bargaining ensures that you're not being forced to take wages that far undercut what you should be being paid for. So this has nothing to do with just unions. This has everything to do with non-union as well, with people who are not being represented by us. Me working non-union prior to being into the union, I realized just what that means. I realized as an older person, getting into the union and changing the face and the dynamic of the unions, what they're teaching us in those unions are at a standard that typically non-union will never attempt to reach. It's about the dollar with non-union. Unions pride themselves on negotiating price points because of what we bring to the table and can ensure that even fifth year apprentices like myself can provide to our contractors. So I say all that to say that this is a fantastic bill. I think that it can always have room for improvement, and I'm sure that we're going to attempt to see those improvements made over time. But beyond that, make no mistake, if you're in a union or you're not in a union, this bill is what's protecting you and your wages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrick. Next, we have in opposition, Yafet El Amin.
I believe she's out in the hallway. Can you make sure that folks in the hallway know that we're taking testimony, Sean?
Next, we can move on to Keturah Robinson. In opposition.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Keturah Robinson. I'm with G2 Wrecking and Hauling is my business, and I'm also here with MoCan as a member of MoCan. I believe things should be done decent and in order. I stand in opposition of this bill as it currently is written. Please note, my household, my husband is union and I'm non-union, so we're happy. But I have a couple of things that I would like to speak to, and one is I currently receive most of my demolition contracts through St. Louis City. In 2024, I completed 2 projects specifically, one in the amount of $125,000 and one in the amount of $85,000. As this bill currently reads, I would not be able to obtain either one of those jobs because of the way it's currently written. I am a minority and woman contractor, and this bill completely disregards me as it is currently written, unless I just take jobs for $75,000 or less, which is not fair. I do have 3 questions as it relates to the bill. One question is, when making the decision that ultimately affects the entire workforce in one way or another, were all disciplines, construction entities, minority and women workers considered? My second question is there any documentation that supports that this change would be more beneficial for all groups than what we currently are practicing, the process that we're currently practicing right now? And lastly, my question is, in the effort to write the bill, were there any research done, In the effort to write this bill, was there research by way of current minority workers, women, union and non-union surveyed to best determine the state of the bill? Lastly, I would say I'm recommending that this bill be tabled until the current proposed amendments submitted by MOCAN and the oppositions are considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Next, we have in support Clinton McBride.
Mr. McBride? He might be in the hallway as well. Sean, can you make sure that they know that we're taking public testimony?
Next in support, we have Levi Lavelle or Levi Lavelle.
Can you ask her if she has the list that she referred to?
Thank you. My name is Levi Lovell, First Ward resident, St. Louis Labor Council. I represent tens of thousands of workers in the St. Louis region, and we are very much in support of this bill. This bill codifies into law residency requirements, apprenticeship requirements, minority participation goals, women participation goals, and other good forms of government. We've heard from others about the unions not looking the way they used to, and this bill will codify into law those participation goals. There are people who will have life-advancing careers, jobs that sustain their families and healthcare and a quality way of life, and thus provide quality economic growth for the city of St. Louis and the entire region. So I urge you guys to support this bill. I hope that we can work with a compromise on the threshold, but this bill is a piece of good government and good legislation for all workers in St. Louis, whether it be service employees, grocery store workers, construction workers. Everyone in the St. Louis working community is in support of higher wages and taking care of their family. And this bill just does exactly that. So whenever we decide we're going to spend city dollars and city taxpayer dollars, we need to make sure that we're providing a quality, adequate, sustainable way of living for the members of the city. And I thank you for your time.
Levi.
Thank you, Mr. Lovell. Next, we have in support Antonio Harris. In opposition, Antonio Harris.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
My name is Antonio Harris. I'm a minority stakeholder of MOCAN pre-apprenticeship. And I come here today to support that me, myself, as an entity, as well as several other entities. Yes, I heard a couple of guys earlier. I heard the word expectation. It's rolling so far so good. I'm not here to exactly oppose like everybody's saying. We're not trying to fight. We can negotiate. And with all due respect to the board, if I can use the word fight, yes, we want to fight the bill, to a certain degree. But if we can negotiate on the funds to $500K, 75K is pretty low. There's just one entity. I got a whole group over there, a pre-apprenticeship youth. And yes, he said right. We do want to regulate the funds that's coming into St. Louis and what we doing with them. And we most definitely agree with that. So I just come here to put a little bit on your guys' mind about the youth that we actually need to help in these construction sites to produce more jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Before we go to the next, we wanted to see, was Mr. Clinton McBride in the room in support?
Madam Clerk, we're Ms. Elamine and Mr. McBride have asked to be moved to the end of the list. So,
Okay, thank you. In support, we have, I believe I'm pronouncing this correctly, Daricia Simpson. Delicia? Delicia. You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Go ahead. Take it out. Okay. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Delicia Simpson. I'm a Local 110 member for Liona Laborers. And I'm here to support Bill 155. As a taxpaying resident of St. Louis, I think it's important that we prioritize the way we spend our tax dollars. We should make sure those tax dollars are helping working people and not holding them down. Bill 155 says that if you want to work on tax-funded projects, you have to invest in a training and health care for your employees. Please vote yes for Bill 155, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Adolphus Pruitt in opposition.
I think he's in conference in the mayor's office as well. Madam Clerk, please move him to the end.
Next, we have Zachary Hamilton in opposition.
Mr. Hamilton?
Thank you. Zachary Hamilton. I'm with Harambe. I want to voice my opposition for the bill. This bill, in essence, cripples small and minority, or either not even minority, other small contractors. And for an organization like mine, so we have a significant workforce. Our significant workforce is comprised of significantly minority workers, and we do significant projects in the city. This bill would, in essence, preclude us from doing any work in the city. We don't do work under $75,000 typically, and quite frankly, we have figured out how to get minorities to work. And there are other organizations, other people in the city that have figured out how to get minorities to work. I haven't read anything in the bill that says, this is how we're going to get minorities to work, or this is how we're going to get city residents to work, or this is how we're going to get apprentices to work. It just says you have to do it. And there's nothing in the bill, there's nothing that I've heard, there's nothing that I've seen that says how to do it. The other thing that's, because we understand and we actually support all the work that the unions have done in St. Louis. But I think what we've heard here is that this will force companies like us to join the union. And we haven't seen that work for guys like us. We would love to do it. We understand all the stuff. I'd be out of business tomorrow if I had to do it. And that's real for companies like mine, even though if I could afford it, I would do it tomorrow. So we're not against the union. We're not against what the union goes for. It's just that what you would do is you would make startups pretty much obsolete in the city to work on city projects. And I think that's what the city would like. I think the city would like to have startups working here. But no startup could afford to pay 100% of their health care coverage for all their employees. No startup could afford to go to an apprenticeship program. And answer this one question for me is, where is the apprenticeship program that we can go to? It doesn't exist. So we've trained several well-qualified craftsmen in the city of St. Louis that our name speaks for itself. And you would preclude us from working on any city projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Everyone else is now in opposition. So next we have Mr. Anthony Doss Jr.
Hello, good afternoon to the Alderman Board and everyone present. My name is Anthony Doss Jr. I'm here on behalf of MoCan and myself, and I represent them well. We're not in a fight with the union. You know, we work hand in hand with small entities, minorities, SBAs, and the union. You know, so with that being said, you know, we're just here for the equal opportunity to take care of ourselves and do what we need to do. So, you know, I'm speaking for myself now. You know, I'm going through MoCan to obtain certain certificates to be able to take care of myself and family. And I also aspire, and my goal is to get into the union as an electrician. But also, I'm here in support of MoCan, and yeah, I feel like things should be stayed the same. I'm asking for it to be tabled, to be at 155, and things stay the same. Yeah, that's it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doss. Next, we have Mr. Malcolm Thompson in opposition. Is Mr. Malcolm Thompson here? Oh, next we have Eddie Hassan.
I think that was Tom Malchuk.
Is Mr. Hassan available?
Well, just keep going.
In support, we have Mr. Mike Newton.
Hold it up to your mouth.
Thank you, sir. Mike Newton, business agent for IBW Local 1, 33-year member, journeyman wireman, proud 13th Ward resident, proud city resident. I don't really have any prepared words for you, so I'll just try to pull it off the cuff. So now I stand here in support of the prevailing wage bill, not only for the workers' part, but also this is a pro-business bill because I think it allows competitive, legitimate contractors to be more competitive, competing for projects in the city. And also it protects the workers. So as a black man first, as a electrician second, supporting the people is my main goal here. Anything that is first that will protect the workers, protect the people, support the people, allow them to have a living wage, an opportunity to uplift themselves first, uplift their families, then uplift their communities. I think we have to always always be in support of anything that allows a person, a working man, a working woman, to have that dignity to have that, like, hey, I'm a responsible citizen, and I have the opportunity to support myself, and hopefully create a bright future for those who come behind us.
Thank you.
Oh, here you go. Thank you.
Next, we have in opposition, Mr. Don Buckmuller. Thank you.
My name is Don Buckmueller. I'm with E.M. Harris Construction. I don't know if you know anything about E.M. Harris, but we do a lot of work in the city of St. Louis, and a lot of it is prevailing wage work. I don't think the issue here is prevailing wage. I don't think it's union. I don't think it's non-union. The thing that concerns me is with all these projects that we do, we have to have MBE, WBE support. That includes the businesses that's on the SLDC list. And has anybody checked how many of those companies can comply with the requirements of this bill? So while we're trying to get the 25 and 5 or whatever the new breakdown is now, a lot of those companies are small emerging companies and don't have the wherewithal to comply with some of these requirements. They can comply with prevailing wage. They do the certified payrolls, they do all that, but it's some of the other things that I think need to be worked out. Otherwise, I think it's going to preclude some of those contractors from participating on publicly funded projects. And again, we do tax credit stuff, we do HUD stuff, home funds, comes from everywhere. So 95% of our work is in that lane. And so we use a lot of these smaller contractors and try to help them grow so they can maybe join a union or further their company. But I think getting started, it's very difficult for those smaller companies to comply with all the requirements that we have in this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckmueller. Next, we have in support, Tom Malisak.
Thank you. All right. Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Tom Malisak. I'm a member of Local 562, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, fourth generation family member of that proud local. I rise in support of this bill, not to be repetitive, Alderman, but what my other brothers and members have stated in support, I support what they have to say. I appreciate this time very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
In opposition, we have Mr. Irvin Easley.
No, I'm in favor of the bill. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll switch you over.
Okay, thank you. I'm here. My name's Irvin Easley. How you doing, Mr. Chairman?
Good, thank you.
I am here in favor of this bill because I've been working in construction for 30 years. And the thing that I'm more concerned about, more so than funding and things of that nature, I'm in awe of trying to, about safety. Safety and training come together. We're on a job, things can happen real quick on a construction job when it comes to safety. People can get hurt if they're not trained properly. Other people, not only other construction workers, but people in the public can be hurt, that are walking by. Companies that are not having people trained can affect the public, where we need to guarantee these things. That, hey, people are properly trained, not the guy walking down the street or the brother-in-law who needs a job, but people who have been trained. And I'm in Local 42 union, and I know the people that I work with and alongside have been properly trained.
Thank you.
Next, we have in support Mr. Otto Schoenberg.
My name is Otto Schoenberg. I'm in support of this bill. I represent 500 members with the Painters Union, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Next, we have in support Mr. Wendell Harris.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wendell Harris, and I'm with the Painters District Council. I'm a business agent for the last 8 years. I'm in support of this bill. Thank you.
Next, we have in support Lisa Williams Jones.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Unite here, Local 74, and I'm here to support the bill.
Next, we have in opposition, Mr. Eddie Hassan.
I'm Eddie Hassan. Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for allowing us to be able to speak here today. I'm in opposition to the bill, not because we're in opposition to unions. We most certainly work with the unions. We work with non-union. We work with both companies. Companies can be union, they can be non-union. We work with those companies. But I'm in opposition to the bill as it is because the bill need to be amended to some things that we want to have addressed that we feel it most certainly negatively impact minority and female companies. And we want that threshold to be a certain amount of money. 500,000 was at $1 million, and they lowered the threshold to $75,000. So we want that threshold to be 500,000 to allow small minority and female companies to be able to take advantage of the work that don't necessarily have to be a union company, because most of the language that we're talking about pushes the companies to be union when you're talking about $500,000 and above. We want to make sure when we talk about being able to make sure, we want to make sure that they paying prevailing wages if they're not union, because we want them to be able to make sure that individuals are getting the money that they should be getting for the work that they perform. And we want to make sure that they cover. We talk about the insurance. We talk about the insurance. When you're paying prevailing wages, you automatically, the individuals automatically be able to get the insurance, their retirement, and all of that on their check. We want them to have the option to be able to opt into that insurance or to be able to provide the insurance for themselves and their families. It's not that we don't want them to have all of that. We want them to have all of that. But we want those small and minority and female companies to have an opportunity to participate in the work, that they don't have to necessarily be union. Most of the companies that we're talking about that take advantage of the work, that's $500,000 or $1 million or below, are small companies. Individual companies, the larger companies, now take advantage of the $1 million and above. And most of those are union companies, and they all pay the union wages. I understand that sometimes the unions even get a little sideways with each other about what they pay, but that's the union. At the end of the day, we're looking for that to be most certainly looked at, monitored to make sure that they're paying the prevailing wages on these jobs. We want to make sure that we get an opportunity for females and minorities to be able to work on these jobs. We want those apprenticeship numbers, opportunities for apprenticeships to be there. So we want to be able to make sure that this works for everyone. We want to make sure that the residents in the city of St. Louis are getting opportunities to be able to work on these projects. We get millions and millions of dollars worth of projects coming through. We want to make sure that they get an opportunity to be able to participate and work on these projects. We have a lot of young men and women, okay, that we're looking for, that we begin to be able to make sure that they qualify, ready, willing, and able to go to work, to be able to work on these projects. So we want them to be able to do that. So as the bill is right now, we're saying that we are in opposition to it because we want some things added into that bill to make sure that those opportunities are afforded to all our residents, females, minorities, and others as well. And we don't want necessarily to be boxed into a situation. All the contractors should not be boxed into a situation where they have to be union. Once again, we represent and work with unions and non-unions. So this is not an anti-union initiative. This is not an anti-union stance that we're taking. We're taking a stance to be able to make sure that more individuals are included, more businesses are included, and more opportunities are extended to all the residents of the city of St. Louis and surrounding areas. So that's what we are. So we're in opposition to the bill. We hope that the bill be tabled until we can get those individual changes implemented into the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Next, we have in opposition, Cavell Stockard.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Cavell Stockard. I'm a representative for minority and of MoCan. I'm in opposition to the bill as it stands due to the equality of it all around the board, because it is, as it stands, taken away from not just the minority, but small companies and people's job opportunities. Is limiting the sources to open up those doors to give more job opportunities. And as one of the previous speakers said, about the training, there's not a lot of training opportunities in schools to give them the well-trained without having it to be in the union or get a job that puts you into that position. Because in order for you to get the job, you have to have the qualifications. But in order to get the qualifications, you need this proper teaching. So, and with MOCAN, I know they offer that, by any means necessary of how they can do it, how they can provide it, to put you in a position to be well trained to where you can be on at least the same level for whether non-union or union. I have nothing against the union. My uncle is a construction worker, did it for 20, 30 years. The union took care of him very well, still to this day. But I also know that it was a lot of hardships, and there's a lot of non-union people who have hardships that want to open up doors, but they can't meet certain requirements because there are small funding and less opportunities and less qualified candidates. So I'm in the opposition as far as that because of the equality of the opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stockard. Next, we have in opposition, Mr. Chris Draper. Chris Draper. That will be all right now. Alderwoman Spencer. We have several others on the list, but we're going to take a recess as per Alderman Cone.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
We have Mr. Clinton McBride in support.
Madam Clerk, it was my understanding the chair asked that we continue to hear, but it told you otherwise.
We have one more for public testimony. Mr. Clinton McBride.
Okay. Do I need to go ahead and...
Yes. Okay.
Good to go?
Okay, after you.
Go ahead.
In the absence of the chair, please proceed.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's great to see everybody, and it's great to see such robust public discourse, something that is, quite frankly, so important to the city of St. Louis in terms of workforce development. It's something that we've been talking a lot about, and there's talk about workforce development, but then there's actually doing workforce development, and that's what this Bill 155, seeks to do. So currently, in the city of St. Louis, we don't have any workforce goals on projects under $1 million. $1 million. In St. Louis County, that threshold is $75,000. This bill aims to bring parity with St. Louis County in terms of the boots on the ground goals. We had a disparity study that was done, I guess it's been almost 2 years ago now, and for the first time we had a disparity study that compared apples to apples in both the city and the county. And many of the pieces of this bill are already in place in St. Louis County, and the one thing I thought was really interesting was that the workforce inclusion in St. Louis County was actually higher than what it is in St. Louis City on a percentage basis. So what that says is these policies actually do work, and they bring more minorities and more women into the construction industry. I've heard a lot about equitability, and one of the primary things that was identified with the disparity study is that the city, on projects where we have no goals, we have no inclusion. We have no inclusion, and that's anything under $1 million. So this, I think, is actually very equitable because it makes sure that we are having boots on the ground, the people actually doing the work, being included on these projects so that we can make our construction industry more reflective of the population of the city of St. Louis. I'd like to speak to the wages on this as well, because currently on projects under $1 million, we have no prevailing wage requirement. So a contractor can pay their worker minimum wage. Right? That's tax dollars. That's our tax money, and that's going to provide jobs that are not quality jobs. Right? The prevailing wage makes sure that people are paid a wage that is commensurate with the hard and dangerous work that they are doing each and every single day. So another part of this, I've heard quite a bit this morning about health insurance. And I can remember not so long ago where this very board of aldermen had approved $800,000 in ARPA funding to forgive medical debt, which I think is great. I think that's great. But we need to make sure as a city that our procurement policies are not exacerbating that very problem that we're trying to fix. And that's what this does. It makes sure that folks have insurance. They're working outside, they're working in the cold, they're working in dangerous conditions. People need to have insurance because we don't need more unfunded medical debt. And we need to make sure that we as a city, after we have demonstrated our intentionality to want to do something about medical, we need to make sure we're actually doing something about it and making sure that we're not adding to that. So this has a requirement that, contractors doing business with the city on tax-funded projects have to provide health insurance for their workers. I don't think that is a huge burden, and I don't think that that is a bad thing to ask the city when we know we've already got a problem with it. And here's the other part. Board Bill 155, it ensures that we have safe job sites for our workers on public projects by ensuring that workers are highly trained and know the best safety practices. By ensuring workers have gone through apprenticeship training, we know that those workers have received the proper safety training. Because at the end of the day, I'm only as safe on a job site as the person working next to me. I can be trained to the hilt in all of the safety classes, and I can be doing everything safely. But if the person working next to me doesn't know what they're doing, I'm just as much in danger as I would otherwise be if I didn't have those classes myself. So what's the point of even having safety training if you don't know that the person beside you is going to be working safely? And it's different than just looking in a piece of paper or going through a class in a book and saying, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do in this situation. What it actually means is that you're going to have somebody who's skilled, who's been in this industry for a long time and knows the safety practices, looking over you, essentially mentoring, saying, look, you're doing that wrong, and this is why, and this is how you can get hurt, and it can happen really quickly. You have to have that sort of an oversight. Because at the end of the day, wages, benefits, none of that matter if I don't get to go home at night to my family. If I don't get to go home at night to my family. And I think back, it's not so long ago, there was a hotel that was being built on Wash Ave. It's called the Last Hotel. And there were two workers. They had not been through an apprenticeship program, and they were working in this elevator shaft, and they were in this bucket that was suspended a few stories up. And the men thought that what they were doing was right. They had their harnesses on, they were tied off, and they thought, great, you know what, I'm safe, I'm doing my job, I'm trying to provide for my family. But because they didn't have adequate training, they hooked off to the bucket that they were standing on. And that bucket fell and pulled them down with them. And those men are dead today as a result. They should have been left hanging there like possums, essentially, because they should have known that they should have tied off to something static on the building in the event that that bucket fell. And that's what happened. Those guys didn't get to go home to their family that night. Those guys didn't know that what they were doing wasn't right. And that's just it. We need to take away that deniability that, well, I didn't know what I was doing wrong. Because if somebody has gone through apprenticeship training and been under the tutelage of journey level workers, they're not going to make those same mistakes. So with that, I know that you guys have heard a lot of testimony today. I very much appreciate this time, but I think that we really need to look at the totality of this legislation. And frankly, we need to look at the fact that we at some point have to care about the person actually doing it. They're the people that are being asked to do dangerous jobs. They're the people that are being asked to be put in dangerous situations, and they need to know when that is untenable. The contractor is not the one doing that work themselves. They're not the one in the dangerous. This is about the man doing the work or the woman doing the work. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration for Bill 155. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. McBride, but we do have one more testimony.
Thank you, Madam.
Right now in opposition, Mr. Chris Draper.
Very well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Draper. I am unaffiliated with a union. I represent myself and my company, Crown Contractors and Construction. I am one of those small companies that would be negatively affected by not the complete, first of all, I'm not in complete opposition of the entire bill. However, there are criteria that if I had to meet that criteria today, I would not be in the position I am right now, working for a design build out of Illinois for some of the, for a really large project. So, if I think right now about if I had to be required to have any kind of affiliation with the union in order to even have the opportunity, I wouldn't even be right here, and I wouldn't be able to offer any kind of opportunities for any other members that are graduating from MOCAN or any other programs that are needed in order to diversify this field. Now, there are good things about this, including like the apprenticeship, the mandatory payments and things like that. Even though as a 1099 contractor that's non-union, I hire both union and non-union contractors. You know what I'm saying? So that's been working very well. That gives the non-union workers, opportunities to even get to a position or get the opportunity where they can get the knowledge, meet someone that's in the union, and find out what they need to do to become an affiliate, if that's going to be required and mandatory from here out. And on another note, this is from my personal life. Now, right now in our communities, we have projects going up that are, commercial and residential projects. And if I had to be affiliated in order to have these opportunities, if I had to be affiliated with you to have opportunities with them, maybe it would be different. But these companies that are working, these construction companies right now that are working in our communities, I'm not seeing nobody looking like me working on these projects. These are $100 million projects, and those are $100 million are not going to my community. It's not going to my people. It's not going anywhere. It's going outside of my community. Now, I've interviewed with some of the companies probably here, and I know that I was qualified, whatnot. They didn't hire me for whatever reasons, and I greatly understand that. But my reason for the opposition, I think, is valid. And I think we need to consider, for one, changing that minimum requirement of $75,000, which is a joke to me, of them having to fit that criteria. I think that's just way really too low. And we know exactly who that's going to target. I don't want to play any games about that. And I think we're all adults and we know what we're doing here. So in all, I think that is the negative parts of it, I think, are a form of control. I don't want to go too deep into that. Most of the people that know me know exactly where I stand on these things. But all I know is that we all need to eat on the union side and on the non-union side. And if we can really come together where everybody is treated fairly, and it's not just one demographic of people benefiting in these situations, I think we'll be okay. But can we start having those dialogues? That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, does that conclude our public testimony?
It has.
I'd like to call a 10-minute break, recess, as we regroup here and get other members of the committee back before us. Thank you all for coming in. This is not the end of our hearing. We're just going to take a short 10-minute break.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I understand that there's a few more folks that wanted to testify on the board bill.
Yes, we have Mr. D'Angelo Thomas, who is undetermined.
Appreciate it. How y'all doing? My name is D'Angelo Thomas, and I'm here here on behalf of MOCAN. I heard a lot about safety and training. We not coming out of this program, which is the MOCAN program. We're not coming out of the program empty-handed. We have the credentials to get right into the work field, such as OSHA 10, Hazard Whopper, CPR, First Aid, and Blueprint Ring, and more. It's people that work in the construction industry for like about 20 years and still make mistakes. We human and people make mistakes. No, of course we learn out of the book first, but the only way we can excel and succeed is in this industry program, or in this industry, the construction industry is rather, in the industry is, the only way we can excel and succeed in the industry is if we do hands-on work, whether it's non-union or union. Of course we learn out of the books first, but the only way we can excel and succeed in this industry, whether it's union or non-union, is hands-on work. If we don't have the hands-on work, then we are not qualified. That take place with the people that's been working for more than 5 to 10 years. They can teach us how to be safe on the job. Also, this bill can ruin the opportunity for people such as myself to form my own business in the construction industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I believe it's Draper. Am I correct? Next, I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. Next, we have Ms. Chandra Adams and support.
Hi, I'm Chandra Adams. I'm an apprentice with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And just to speak on a little bit about our apprenticeship, I don't have to worry when I step on a job if my safety comes at a cost. I know that I am trained well, and I put our apprenticeship up against any other. I know that I have an entire family behind me that's going to make sure that I am taken care of, I am well trained. We get all the same, your CPR, we get your in-book learning. We are boots on the ground learning, and we learn from people who were trained just by being in the field. We don't have to worry about, do I have to sacrifice anything for coming into work today? I trust and I believe the membership that I have behind me, and I'll stand with them any day of the week.
Thank you.
And next we have in opposition, Ms. Yafet El-Amin.
I believe. We haven't taken up. This is based off of the current board bill. So the alderman from the sponsor, the alderman from the 4th, actually has some amendments that we're going to take up. But first we'll have to put the board bill before us. So if you want to hold your testimony until after those are adopted, that's fine. Okay. Madam Clerk, was it the last of the public testimony?
Yes.
Okay, Alderman, if you want to take the dais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So I believe right now we have Board Bill 155 committee substitute in front of us, but we have not adopted it yet. After some back and forth discussions in between numerous interested parties, I think all parties have come to an agreement here, and those are reflected in amendment number 1 and 2 that are being uploaded to the drive as we speak. These are there's a clear red line amendment on both of them. But before I get into those, I would like to move to adopt Board Bill 155 committee substitute.
I will second that. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Ryan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Chair Cone.
Aye.
We have 4 aye votes.
Okay, with that,
I believe the president is on the call.
President Green.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
wonderful. That with that vote, you sustain the motion to adopt committee substitute to Board Bill 155. We now have the committee substitute before us. Alderman, you may proceed.
Thank you. So I'd like to discuss Amendment 1 to Board Bill 155, committee substitute now. So one of the contentious points of this bill was the dollar threshold at which this legislation would essentially kick in. As you heard from Clint McBride earlier, the county is at $75,000. And so when we filed this, it was initially to try to be in parity with the county. There were other folks at the table who didn't love that dollar figure, and we sat down and hashed it out. And so that dollar figure is now going to $400,000. And SLDC is also going to set the goal minimum percentage of apprentices, which shall be minorities and or women, in a percentage consistent with the most recently adopted city disparity study. So that also means that this will essentially self-update as the years go on and we do disparity studies, that those standards will change to reflect any disparities as we move forward. And then there's another reference to that $400,000 to changing the 75 to the $400,000. I'm happy to field any questions on that.
Alderman, I was just made aware that amendments aren't currently in the drive for members to view.
All right.
Madam Clerk, can you follow up to make sure that those are uploaded to the drive?
They are already working on it right now.
Great, thank you. So,
well, I have a hard copy if anyone would like to see it.
Okay.
Here, I'll come.
Well, do you want to talk about both of them while they're being up there?
Sure. And then while we're waiting for the upload of amendment number 1, I'll also just bring up amendment number 2, which was regarding the health insurance language. I think all parties were essentially in agreement on this. This was something that different people were reading the sentence different ways. And so we just clarified this to ensure that people who are on these jobs have healthcare coverage unless they're voluntarily opting out of healthcare coverage. And that healthcare coverage can come from them, it can come through the prevailing wage, it can come from a spouse, it can come from a parent, and it needs to meet the standards outlined by the ACA. And again, happy to field any questions there.
Okay. We'll take questions from the committee. Vice Chair Spencer.
I'm going to defer for just a minute.
Okay. To be clear, the questions would be on amendment number 1 at this point. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. I was able to read the text of the amendment, but I do want to have it in our drive before we take a vote, if possible.
I'm waiting.
I appreciate that. I imagine this conversation was had over the last hour, and people are feeling much better about what's in the bill in terms of the folks who are in this room. We heard a lot of testimony on both sides. If you could just give us a little bit more context, appreciate it.
Sure. So we were just back discussing with folks from organized labor, from the Missouri general contractors, from MOCAN, the building trades, the laborers, a lot of interested parties were in the room, and parties that oftentimes don't necessarily see eye to eye on this specific type of issue. But I think we all got to a place where everyone is comfortable with what's in here. I don't think anyone in the room loved what we've ended up with, but I think everyone can live with it. Everyone's comfortable with it. I personally asked everyone who was representing any entity in there if they were good with this agreement. Everyone said that they were, and so I think that's a sign that the negotiations have kind of come to an end.
Thank you for that. It is now in the drive, and I appreciate the time to explain how this was arrived to. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Madam President.
No questions. I just want to point out that on the amendment, there is a Scribner's error. It says 20 instead of 20. If the clerk could just make note of that.
Madam Clerk.
Noted.
Take note of that.
Other than that, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I don't want to have to litigate what 20% means. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get that piece right.
The numeral is correct. It's just the language.
Correct.
Not on the drive. Yeah. And I understand that Alderman Browning has joined us as well. Madam Clerk, Alderman Browning is...
One moment. Can you repeat that, Alderman Cone?
It's my understanding that Alderman Browning may be online virtually.
I'm not seeing Alderman Brown. He's not on the panelist or attendee side.
If there's no further discussion on amendment number 1 to Board Bill 155 committee substitute, I would also note that this amendment on the drive says 155 floor substitute. It's a committee substitute.
Sure does.
So, Madam Clerk, if you can please make sure that there's a friendly amendment there saying that that's a committee substitute.
Noted.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion on amendment number 1 to Board Bill 155 committee substitute.
I move that we adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 155 committee substitute.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st Ward, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 8th Ward, that we adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill 155 committee substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Ryan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Chair Cone.
Aye.
We have 4 aye votes.
Madam President.
I'm so sorry, President Green. President Green.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
With that motion, or with that vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 1st, I believe. Or,
Yes.
Yeah, okay. To pass amendment number 1 to Board Bill 155 Committee Substitute. We'll take up amendment number 2. It is also loaded into the drive. Any questions on amendment number 2? Vice Chair Spencer.
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions. It does say floor substituted again at the top, but I think the rest of it is correct. Thank you.
Madam President.
No questions. Looks good to me.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just for a summary for the folks in the room.
Sure. Would you care to repeat the summary?
Sure. So one of the portions of this board bill was to ensure that on projects that meet this threshold that are using public funds, that the people working those job sites would have access to health care, whether that be through the employer, an employer fund, or part of the prevailing wage. And everyone in the room was supportive of that. It was just working out the specific language and the concept that someone may have coverage from their spouse, from their parents, or may voluntarily want to not have health insurance for some reason. I'm not sure why someone would do that, but I know that there are people who do that. This controls for those types of issues.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman. Any questions from the committee? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on amendment number 2 to Board Bill 155 Committee Substitute. Or amendment number 2.
I move to adopt amendment number 2 to Board Bill number 155 Committee Substitute as amended.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 8th, that we adopt amendment number 2 to Board Bill 155 Committee Substitute. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, amendment number 2 is adopted to Board Bill 155 Committee Substitute.
Thank you. So at this point, I guess we have Board Bill number 155 Committee Substitute as amended in front of us. And again, I think that all of the parties have come to the table, negotiated in good faith, and ended up with a board bill that will help move working people forward, both in the union and people who choose not to be in a union. It'll move the goalposts for the working men and women of this city to ensure that prevailing wage is enforced, and that if you're working on a job that is utilizing public funds, that you have health care insurance. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have at this point.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Alderwoman Vice Chair Spencer.
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much for the time and for bringing this bill forward. I am especially excited about the section regarding prevailing wage and the restitution for workers, which is just crucial. If workers are shortchanged when they should be being paid a prevailing wage, it is the responsibility of the city to make sure that they're paid what they should be being paid. And I appreciate the language in this bill that puts that in place very clearly, and the debarment process and things that I think were just missing from some of the previous ways the city does this. So I know we focused a lot on other parts of the bill today, and I just want to make sure that section is lifted up. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you to everyone who took the time to show up today. I know it's not nothing to spend all of your day with us, so it was really nice to see you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Has Alderman Browning joined?
No, I do not see Alderman Browning on.
Okay. Madam President, any questions on Board Bill 155 Committee Substitute as amended?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. No questions, just glad to see everyone come together around a compromise here. Also want to make sure that in addition to thanking Alderman Narayan for helping to get this over the finish line, also want to make sure that I recognize Alderwoman Schweitzer, who has done quite a bit of work on prevailing wage over the last few months and helping to bring folks to the table to make sure that we address prevailing wage enforcement issues in the city. And looking forward to getting this passed and being able to better support working people in our city. Thanks.
Thank you. And at this time, just public testimony, because we did have one speaker who had signed up that wanted to testify after the amendments were added to the committee substitute. So, Ms. L.L.C, if you still desire to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Yafet El-Amin. I am the Executive Director of MOCAN Construction and Contractors Assistance Center. I would first of all like to thank Alderman Narayan as well as the Mayor's Office for their assistance with helping us to negotiate a better bill, a bill that affords for opportunities for all companies, whether that be the small one-man, one-trunk company or those companies that have more than 100 employees. We, as MOCAN, represent minority as well as non-minority, we represent union as well as non-union contractors. We also assist minority workers and female workers, people who have been in a disadvantaged community and who have not had full opportunities to participate in the construction trades, to work in the trades. We prepare them for apprenticeship opportunities, whether that be with a union company or non-union company. We believe that it's important for those same young men and women to recognize that they can have a screw gun versus a handgun. And the way to get out of these communities of poverty is with a good job. We believe that through construction, that provides an opportunity for those young men and women. We believe that this bill, as amended, would allow for those companies who choose to be merit shop independent, which are the majority of minority contractors, that they will now still have opportunities to participate on construction procurement opportunities in the city of St. Louis. We also believe that now this bill will also afford for minority laborers, female laborers, as apprentices, as the bill now is amended, that will increase those opportunities for more Black and brown and female people to participate in construction apprenticeship programs. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, also for your diligence and work on the bill. Again, to the Mayor's Office and Alderman Narayan, thank you again. We also would like to thank the labor unions for coming to the table and negotiating with us to afford us a bill that creates a win-win opportunity for all citizens in the city of St. Louis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I will entertain any questions.
Any questions from the committee?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No? All right. Thank you, Ms. L.L.C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further public discussion?
Mr. Adolphus Pruitt, are you still speaking?
Sure. Mr. Pruitt?
Yeah. Adolphus Pruitt, President, St. Louis City NAACP, who has been in this city for 114 years doing the type of work that happened today. All I want to say is that today was a reflection on what occurred back in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement, and that is when advocacy organizations and labor were able to come together and fight for a common cause. And the fact that we were able to revisit that today was delightful. I really do appreciate the fact that it happened, and we just need to be prepared because we have a president in office who is hell-bent on destroying all of the stuff we just did today. And so we need to be prepared locally
to handle what we can here, because any of those opportunities we expect to give for minorities and women at the federal level are going away as we speak. And so locally, the Board of Aldermen, the administration, anything you can do to ensure that we're able to still participate in opportunities locally is truly appreciated, because they're going away everywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Any further discussion? I believe I said at the beginning of this, I was trying to keep the meeting under 3.5 hours. We're just under 3 hours. So I do appreciate everyone. I know, as my colleague from the First Ward mentioned, we know that it's no small effort on your all's part being here, being with us, this morning, this afternoon now. And it is greatly appreciated. We know that your time, talent, and treasure is just as important to your families, your coworkers, et cetera. And it's not always the most enjoyable experience sitting in these committee rooms for hours on end. So it does mean a lot to us that you all took the time out of your days to be here with us. And I just want to reiterate that point. So thank you very much for being here, helping to build some bridges, helping to have some conversations, and making the city a better, more safer place for workers. So with that, Alderman, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Chairman Cohn. Members of the committee, I also just want to, I think, echo what a lot of folks have said here before. This is the legislative process working. This is people who came together with different ways of wanting to do things, and we sat at the table and hammered it out, and the room got hot, the room got cold, but everyone was doing what they believe was the best thing for the people that they represent. And with that, I want to thank organized labor. I want to thank the AGC. I want to thank the NAACP, MOCAN, the administration, the lawyers who were in on the room, and most of all, everyone who came out today to voice their support or opposition for this bill, because it's those voices that hone the bill and make it a better piece of legislation. And I think now in front of us, we have a really solid piece of legislation that's going to uplift working people throughout the city. And I know that that's the goal of everyone in the room who came here today. And I think that we have taken a great step forward in achieving that. And with that, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill 155, Committee Substitute, as amended.
I move that we pass Board Bill 155, Committee Substitute, as amended from committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 8th, that we pass Board Bill 155, Committee Substitute, as amended out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderman Browning. Chair Cohn.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes.
Wonderful. With that vote, you sustain the motion to pass Board Bill 155, Committee Substitute, as amended out of committee with a due pass recommendation. That was a unanimous vote. That doesn't happen all the time down here at the Board of Aldermen. So just to set expectations for next steps, this now goes before the full Board of Aldermen. It'll be second read. There's no longer the opportunity.
Give yourselves a round of applause, because we're leaving here together in unity to be able to get this done. Thank labor and thank everybody.
Thank you. So next steps is that it goes before the full Board of Aldermen for second reading, and then the following week there'll be an opportunity for debate at the full Board of Aldermen. You all are always more than welcome to come back down and join us, but you'll be able to watch, but you won't actually be able to engage in those conversations at that point in time. But congratulations and thank you for your time.
We are adjourned.
No, we're not, Madam Clerk, we're not adjourned.
Okay. What time?
We need to vote to do that. Yep.
Madam Clerk, can you please add me as a co-sponsor to Board Bill 155?
Noted.
Could you add the Alderman from the 14th as a co-sponsor?
The Alderman from the 14th is recognized, even though he's not a member of the committee. Madam Clerk, did you hear The Alderman from the 14th asked to be added as a co-sponsor
Noted.
for Bill 155. Could you also please add myself as a sponsor, co-sponsor? Okay, we don't have any further discussions pending before the committee. I have no announcements at this juncture. All Alder people were present. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we adjourn. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned.
I think